title of film versus digital on the internet has become an over-argued cliché. Article or video responses to this question inevitably conclude that the story, the message, is the most important thing in cinema. Far more important than the question of celluloid versus pixels, the medium. However, using a theory from Marshall McLuhan, I'd argue that the medium is the message. The way films are presented through their medium of choice is inextricably linked to the message or story of the film, and affects how the audience interprets a movie on a subconscious level. In 1964, Marshall McLuhan published the book Understanding Media, in which he theorized that the medium in which content is presented is as important, if not more important, than the content itself. Taking film as an example, he'd argue that the conventions of filmmaking which originated from the medium, such as using a cut to show time passing for example, had as great an impact as the message of the story. Today, I'll take this a step further by arguing that in cinematography, the medium used to shoot a movie, be it digital or film, has a profound psychological impact on how the audience interprets a story. I'll go over the basics of what film is, illustrate the differences between digital and film technology, and break down the choice of mediums in creative applications from popular cinema to show the effect that they have on an audience. There's a reason that films are called films. When cinema was first created, there was only one medium that enabled the illusion of moving images that we call movies. Let's get a little technical. Film is made from a photochemical gelatin emulsion. When light hits the emulsion for a short period of time, such as a 50th of a second, it absorbs and imprints those light rays onto the emulsion. After exposure, the film is then developed by passing it through a combination of chemicals. This fixes and imprints the image onto the piece of film. Usually, negative film is used, which means that when exposed and developed, it imprints an opposite image on the film. Colors are reversed. The darkest parts of the film appear light, and the lightest parts appear dark. Later, this negative is turned into a positive. To screen the film in a cinema, a projector is used, which passes light through a positive image and projects an enlarged version of the film onto a surface. From the late 1800s up to the early 2000s, this remained the dominant medium for capturing and presenting motion pictures. After the 2010s, however, digital cinema cameras became the dominant medium for capturing images. Digital cinema cameras use the same concept as film cameras, but the film emulsion is replaced with a sensor which captures light and pixels, which is stored digitally. This footage is shown in cinemas by digital projectors. Currently, we're living in a world with an abundance of mediums for capturing images for cinema. From different sizes of film, 16mm to IMAX, and different digital mediums, iPhone to 8K cinema cameras, we're faced with more mediums than ever to tell stories. I'd break the differences between film and digital down into three main categories: texture, practical differences, and the base characteristics of the two mediums. When considering the differences between smaller gauge film stocks like 16mm and modern digital cinema cameras, one of the clearest differences is in the texture. Because of the chemical nature of film, it produces a texture or film grain which is random and seen as visually desirable. The smaller the film size gets, the more the grain is accentuated. This is why the untrained eye finds it easier to identify when something was shot on film when viewing 8 or 16mm footage as opposed to the fine grain 70mm. Because it's made up of ones and zeros rather than chemicals, digital texture or noise is predictable and patterned, meaning it's usually viewed as undesirable, hence all the denoising software out there. Partly because of its historical connection to the past, film texture is associated with being romantic, nostalgic, and sentimental. The lack of digital texture means images appear sharp, clean, and clinical. Practically, film has many attributes which are commonly viewed as limitations. Shooting on film is costly, both the price of purchasing the film stock as well as its development. Digital cameras can roll far longer, with the only cost of rolling the camera being hard drive storage. This means that typically movies shot on film shoot less takes. Some enjoy the limitation and discipline that this provides, reasoning that overshooting could dilute the director's vision of the film. Others like that digital allows them to get more options. Finally, let's consider the inherent characteristics of film and digital. Film stocks come in set ASAs with set color temperatures. Film typically produces colors which have beautiful levels of contrast without being overly saturated. Digital cameras are able to adjust the ASA, or the camera's sensitivity to light, as well as the color temperature with the press of a button. With digital cameras that shoot in RAW, large adjustments to these parameters can also be made in post-production, whereas film bakes in the look of whatever light is captured onto the negative. Typically, this means that shooting on film establishes the specific color and exposure on set, while digital images can be manipulated more in post-production. Let's take a look at Phantom Thread, shot on film by Paul Thomas Anderson, and Ex Machina, shot digitally, to see how the mediums they were shot on affected the messages of the films. There's a trend for period movies to utilize film. I'd argue that using the nostalgic, textural medium of the past that shooting on film provides enforces the old world storytelling in period films. Phantom Thread is set in the 1950s, where the only medium to capture images was through film photography. Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to create a look for the film which was dirtied up, the opposite of beautifully polished period film conventions. To achieve this, he push-processed the film stock, which increased the textural grain in the image. Science fiction movie Ex Machina went a different route. The production design and overall look of the film needed to be far more clean. Dealing with a story about artificial intelligence in a futuristic world, a cleaner, digital medium with 16-bit color science shot at 4K helped visually support the message of the film. So different mediums can be used to shoot different genres. But what about two films which are both character studies? The Wrestler, shot on 16mm, and The Joker, shot on a large format digital camera. The old, gritty, textured look of 16mm film supports the telling of a personal story about an aging wrestler who is forced to come to terms with his own deterioration. The Wrestler is shot with a documentary aesthetic, utilizing a handheld camera. 16mm film was historically the medium used for making documentaries, which further supports its choice as the medium to best tell this story. For Lawrence Sher, the key to cinematography of Joker was finding a medium where he could best compose the character in relation to his environment. He wanted the audience to be psychologically connected to the character through a close, intimate perspective. Through the medium of large format digital capture, he was able to shoot on slightly longer lenses while maintaining his desired compositional perspective. There's no medium which should be considered better or worse. They're just different tools which we can use to tell stories with. If the medium does indeed hold as much power as the message of the story, then it's our job as filmmakers to carefully think about which medium works best to convey the right visual idea. Whether shooting on a phone or 70mm film, it's still important to consider the effect that the technology has on the audience. The argument shouldn't be about whether film or digital is better. The argument should be about which one is right for the story. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. As I spend a lot of personal time making these videos, I'd really appreciate it if you could like, comment and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of this content. Until next time, thanks for watching and goodbye.